What's good, Irish Breakdown, IB Nation? Welcome to another edition of the Irish Breakdown podcast presented by our friends at FanDuel. I'm Vince D'Addario. That's Brian Driscoll, and we are the OGs. It is a Friday. It is Black Friday for those of you that celebrate. It's been an interesting 24 hours, at least in my house, with Black Friday and Thanksgiving.
Celebrate you not having as much money by the end of Black Friday as you had at the beginning of Black Friday. Is that what we're celebrating?
Not me. I spent $0. My children, on the other hand, they decided to go out and do their thing this morning. Yeah. So definitely was an interesting scenario, but we're here. We got football games like all day today, all day tomorrow. I mean, and good ones and ones that matter. That's the thing. Ones that matter. And so we're going to dive into this thing. And so today, just to kind of catch some people up, just kind of how we've been doing things and how things have been done. Brian and Trevor did a show on Wednesday about the games that are kicking off right now and the rest of today. So all of those games they talked about. All right. Brian and I are going to talk about the games that kick off tomorrow and what those games are all about, those matchups, those predictions, all the fun that takes place there. Now, thanks to my friends at YouTube TV, I have a 4-way screen going on over here where I've got 4 football games on right here. So if anything's going on in those games, we may talk about it. I'm just throwing that out there. But we are primarily talking about the games that are going to take place tomorrow and do our normal show, talk about those games, predict those games, all of that kind of fun stuff. And so there was one game, though, Brian, that took place last night that was a heck of a football game, to be honest with you, especially if you're a Notre Dame fan. Navy and Memphis played last night, Thanksgiving Eve, and that was a heck of a game. And of course, Navy ends up pulling it out. They won 28-17, and I don't believe it was really all that close. I watched the second half primarily, and Navy absolutely dominated the second half of that football game. And the announcers were talking about how Navy was kind of all over the place in the first half, and they were losing by 3 at halftime and all of that. And then they go on a 10-minute drive, and then, they couldn't really be stopped in the second half, both on both sides of the football.
Well, the only thing that stopped Navy last night was Navy. I mean, really, right, if you think about it. I mean, they, whether it was making dumb penalties that, converted 3rd and longs that would have, or, for Memphis, whether it was fumbling the ball at the 1-yard line about to go in. Yep. It was 28-17, Vince, but as you kind of alluded to, it wasn't that competitive. They smacked Memphis last night. And Memphis had their chances early. They had 2 deep shots on the first drive and then another deep shot. I think it was series 2 or 3. That if the quarterback just throws a better ball, they got big plays, and they just couldn't get it done. So Navy dominated the second half of that game last night. And the big key for them was when they had that late second quarter drive where Navy goes 3 and out. This is a terrible drive for Navy, and which included a great play. I think that was the drive where that DB came from behind and knocked that ball out of the Navy receiver's hands. I think that was play was on that drive, but. Memphis gets the ball. They go right down the field. They get in the red zone. Navy's able to kind of buckle down a little bit, hold them to a field goal attempt that the guy misses. Once that happened, I was like, ooh, Navy's a good second half team. That's not going to go well for Memphis. And, of course, Navy made adjustments. Memphis did not. And once again, Memphis loses to a ranked football team. I got to say, their coach, I saw their coach's name getting mentioned for like jobs like Arkansas and different jobs like that. I'm like, Ryan Silverfield is an average coach. I mean, they posted something. His team is like now 12-20 against teams with a record above 500. That is not good. That is not good. That's worse than that's Brian Kelly bad. Like,
well, and they're playing, it's not like they're playing a bunch of like SEC ranked teams or Big Ten ranked teams. Like they're
well, I will say this: the AAC is very deep for their level. Like,
agreed.
It's very. But still, you're Memphis. If you're a good coach and you're supposed to be getting your name mentioned for P5 jobs, and you should be better than 12-20 against teams. And this wasn't against ranked teams. This is against teams that have a record above 500.
That's what I'm saying.
That was not a good stat. It was not good at all. It's a good win for Navy. Now, if you're a Navy fan, you need either North Texas to lose today to Temple, or you need Tulane to lose to Charlotte.
Right.
Charlotte's not beating Tulane. I just don't see that happening. Charlotte's really bad. Maybe Temple can pull off an upset on the road against North Texas. It's unlikely. Maybe the distraction of their coach going to Oklahoma State is something that could result in that. I don't know. It's unlikely that Navy is going to be able to get to that level, but still, heck of a year or two for Brian Newberry to go 9-2 in the regular season at Navy after going 5-7 in year one.
They still have another game. They got the Army game, so they could have back-to-back 10-win seasons for the first time.
Oh, sure, and I expect them to because
yeah.
I mean they should be able to beat Army. My guy Dan and his family are going to be mad at me for saying that, but Army's not that great this year. But you never know with that game, Trev. I mean, Vince, Trev always talks about this. He always talks about, throw the record out in certain rivalries, and that's certainly one. The Army-Navy game is like, the records don't mean a whole lot in that particular game. So, we'll see how that goes. We'll definitely see how that goes. But, going to be a very interesting Friday. A lot of great games on today. Ole Miss and Mississippi State are playing right now. Ole Miss just completed a dig route here for a big play to get down to field goal range. Mississippi State player tried to make a play on the ball, did not do a very good job of making a play on the ball, whiffed on the tackle, and so now they're cooking. Got Iowa, Nebraska's on right now. You've got there's one Utah, Kansas is on right now. So a lot of football on today. We will mention those games as we go, but we're going to focus on previewing and making predictions for the games being played tomorrow.
Yes. And so, you kind of just mentioned all the games that are going on today. So you want to just jump into the games that are going tomorrow? You ready?
As always, we'll go in order, from kickoff time, and we'll go that way.
All right. So the first game.
Ole Miss. Ole Miss making quick work in Mississippi State. They went down and scored fast.
That was just fast. Run off tackle. Like it wasn't even anything
special
either.
Bad series for the Mississippi State defense. Real bad series for the Mississippi State defense. So, all right, let's get going.
All right, man. Kicking off tomorrow at noon, arguably the best rivalry in college football. Ohio State on the road, number 1 team in the nation, 11-0 at Michigan, number 15. I believe they are a 2-loss team, so they're 9-2 at the moment. They are playing, obviously, at Michigan Stadium on Fox. Ohio State favored by 10.5, according to our friends at FanDuel. The over-under set at 43.5. So Vegas looking at a fairly low-scoring game in this one. Brian, what are your initial thoughts on this game and kind of how this thing is going to play out? Because I can safely say I've been wrong 4 years in a row.
Yes, and if Michigan wins again this year, I'll probably be wrong again this year. I think my biggest question is, will their 2 stud receivers play against Michigan? I think that's the biggest question mark. Is we don't know, and there's reports that say that they expect them to. They're going to try. They're questionable. They say they're going to play. I don't know if that's necessarily given. Will it be both of them? I think if one of them plays and is able to kind of play somewhat to their level, they'll dominate that. If they can't, then that makes it a little bit trickier. But even without them, Michigan's win last year was so fluky. I mean, you say well, look, man, there's no way Michigan's going to be able to score on Ohio State. Well, they couldn't score on Ohio State last year either, except for the fact that you threw an interception that gave them the ball inside the 10 to start a drive. I mean, that kind of plays a little bit of a role in helping you score when your scoring drives are less than 10 yards. Is actually, if you go look at last year, Michigan's 10 points, their first touchdown drive was a 2-play, 2-yard drive. Their next drive to make it 10-3 was a 4-play, 3-yard drive where they got a field goal. It wasn't until the game-winning drive where they actually put a drive together, 11 plays, 57 yards. So it's not like they did anything against them last year. Michigan only had 234 yards of offense last year and beat Ohio State. The problem is Ohio State only had 252 yards. So this is going to be really a big test for Ohio State's offense. I mean, there's a lot of talk about how Ohio State hasn't been tested and haven't played anybody. And that's true. Now, Ohio State has also done to all those teams what an elite team is supposed to do, which is destroy them all. And they've held, seven of their 11 opponents so far have scored in single digits. 2 others have scored only 10, and they have yet to give up more than 16 points in a game. So Michigan is doing, or Ohio State's doing what an elite team is supposed to do to bad competition. So how will they play today when they have to play better competition? I mean, I think it's a fair question. I just don't know that Michigan's necessarily that much better than some of the teams they're already playing. That's kind of my point. Like, I don't know that Michigan on the road is going to be as tough as playing Washington on the road. I know Washington got beat by Michigan, but Washington's a very different team at home than they are on the road. You know, they had to play at Illinois. They played Penn State. So, I mean, this is going to be a test for Ohio State. This will be their toughest test since Texas. My point is simply that it's not that much greater of a test than some of the ones they've already had. I think people are acting like, you know, Ohio State's about to have to go play Oregon or Indiana or, you know, a team like that after not playing anyone for 2 months. And I just don't see that. I think this Ohio State team is built very differently than last year's team. I don't know if it's a better team overall when it comes to winning a championship, but I think it's much better built to be successful in the regular season. And this defense is playing at a very, very high level. And you're going against a team in Michigan who has a first-time starting quarterback, true freshman starting quarterback who has 9 touchdown passes and 11 starts.
Right.
You know, and I don't believe that Justice Haynes will be playing. I've seen Michigan say that he's not out for the year, but I don't expect him to either play. I don't expect him to play today. I think he's out for this game, and not having him has hurt their offense. Jordan Marshall's a nice player, but he's not Justice Haynes. So I just think everything favors Ohio State, except for the fact, Vince, that just is it in their head now, like it is with Georgia and Alabama. I mean, Georgia should have smacked Alabama this year, but they didn't, because at this point in time, I think it's in their head. So is that what we're doing here, or is Ohio State just kind of okay? They've had some bad luck, and now they're about to fix some things.
Yeah, if you're a Michigan fan, I think the biggest worry here coming into this game is, can the Michigan offense put up enough points to stay in this game? Like that's the biggest thing for me. I just, you know, Ohio State is Ohio State. I mean, even if the 2 receivers don't play, they're still going to put up points. You know,
right.
They won't put up
talented receivers.
Right. They're not going to put up as many. And if Julian Sayin is who Julian Sayin is, you know, I mean, he's being mentioned in the Heisman Trophy discussion, all of these things, rightfully so, with the numbers that he's been putting up. I get it. It's a big game, right? Like, this is the marquee game. If you go to Ohio State, this is the one that's circled. You know, Ohio State legends become legends with how they play in this game.
That's right.
Right? So who are you, Julian Sayin? And if he is who Ohio State fans and a lot of national media think he is, he's going to find receivers to put points on the board. You know what I mean? Like that's
to win
where
the
I'm
game.
at.
I don't need Julian Sayin to go out there and pass for 350 yards to prove he's the man. I mean, that's not necessarily what this offense is, you know, at all, much less when those guys are out. I just need him to be able to make some throws, to move the chains, protect the football. When those big play opportunities are there, be able to hit those big play opportunities. And, you know, they're going to even if those 2 guys don't play, you still have Brandon Innes. You still have 2 very talented tight ends. You know, you still have backs out of the backfield. You still have Quincy Porter. You have receivers that are talented players. It's not like, well, Jeremiah Smith can't play, so throw the walk-on the field. You know, the 5'10", 165-pound walk-on who runs a 4.8. That's not what you're doing. You're putting good football players on the field. Mylan Graham, somebody mentions, another one. So they have talent. It's going to really come down to, in this matchup, Vince, is Ohio State's defense as good as advertised? Can Ohio State limit the big mistakes they made last year that gave Michigan 10 points? I mean, Michigan had 10 points on offense last year, basically, that were just gifted to them Michigan did. That was gifted to them by Ohio State. So can you avoid those type of mistakes in this game? That's going to be the question. And then I still don't know how good Michigan's offense is, and I don't think it's very good. But, you know, they've protected their running back or their quarterback a lot. You know, they've run the ball very effectively down the stretch. They've run the ball for 276, 253, 216, and 228 in their last 4 games. Run the ball very well. But that was against Michigan State, Purdue, Northwestern, and Maryland. Not exactly like a who's who of competition. So I'm very curious to see if Ohio State's defense is as good as we think it is. If it is, then they should be able to stop a one-dimensional Michigan team.
Right. Agreed. So you want to jump into some predictions?
Well, Yeah, I mean, we can. There's just a couple
okay.
matchups in this game that I think are interesting. Some things that we want to learn. I for Ohio State, I really want to find out how good their offensive line is. I think that's the key for Ohio State. So for Michigan, we're going to find out if their offense is legit. We're going to find out if they can run on a really good defense. Because here's the deal, Vince, I don't think that Michigan is going to be able to run on Ohio State like they have in recent games, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to run well enough to win the game. And then can Michigan hit some throws? I mean, this is the whole point. I had a Michigan coach tell me this offseason, like, look, if you think about how bad the pass offense was last year, we don't need Bryce to come out or the kid that they had starting to be in the year, or that they thought Mikey Keene, who might start before he got hurt. Like, think about how bad the pass offense was last year. They don't have to look like Tom Brady. They just have to make some throws, and that's it. Can Bryce Underwood make those throws? Can he use his legs enough to move the chains and hurt Ohio State? That's going to be the key for the Michigan offense. On the other side of the ball, this is going to be a very good test for the Ohio State offensive line, who I don't think has really been overwhelmingly impressive this season. They've been good. Their run game was kind of stalemated for a while. The last two games, they went for 222 and 254. Is that their run offense figuring it out with some new transfers at running back on the offensive line? Phillip Daniels transfers in. They lost a bunch of guys in the NFL. You've got the new running backs, whether it's, freshman Bo Jackson, whether it's CJ Donaldson from the transfer portal, James People taking over. Isaiah West is also a freshman. So, like, brand new backfield, brand new looking offensive line. And can you kind of put it together? That's the question. Well, maybe the last two games were a sign that Ohio State's figured it out and they've put it together with their offensive line. It could also be that it's UCLA and Rutgers, and you were able to just kind of bully them. We don't bully Michigan. If you're going to run the ball on Michigan, it's going to be evidence that your offensive line has come together. You are gelling, and the new look offensive line is hitting its stride, which is kind of understandable because we saw that a little bit with their line last year. Remember, their line last year struggled early. You had injuries, you had guys moving around, and then by the end of the year, even with the loss of their All-American center, Donovan Jackson had played a bunch of games in a row at left tackle. The guard rotation was working good. Like, all those things were going. And then by the time they got to the playoffs, their offensive line kind of hit their stride. Well, is that what's happening again this year, or did they just beat up on two bad teams? The answer to that is going to go a long way towards Ohio State winning a close competitive game, losing the game, or whooping Michigan. That's going to be the big key is if their offensive line plays well, I think they can run on Michigan enough to protect the pass game, and then they give Julian Saint enough time to make some big throws because, as I said, they still have some legit weapons on the outside. So I don't think it's going to be the beatdown it could have been with a healthy Cardinal Tate and a healthy Jeremiah Smith, but there's still plenty of weapons for Ohio State to be able to win this game and win this game with some ease, I should say, or comfort. That ease is not, it's never easy beating Michigan. Some comfort. It'll be a comfortable win.
Let me ask you this. Thoughts. Could this game be a bit of a precursor for Ohio State from a standpoint of, you talk about the offensive line, you talk about, the fact that they're probably not where they need to be, from last year, and if they're going to make a run in the college football playoff, the offensive line is going to be tested. So if you're just watching this game, just you're not a fan of either team, you're watching it as an analyst, you're watching it as a potential opponent of Ohio State in the playoff, are we going to learn something here about the offensive line for Ohio State?
Yes. No question. No matter the outcome of the game, this is the closest they've played to and I don't know that Michigan even has this, but this is the closest that they're going to play to a playoff caliber defense in a while. I mean, think about it. Texas had that early, we thought, but their defenses, whenever they play good offenses, doesn't look great. Washington doesn't have that. Minnesota doesn't have that. Illinois doesn't. Wisconsin doesn't. Penn State doesn't. Purdue doesn't. UCLA doesn't. Rutgers doesn't. This is absolutely the closest thing they're going to play to a playoff caliber defense. And so and that's, again, I'm not sitting there saying, I'm not one of those national people that's like, oh, Ohio State hasn't played anybody. I can acknowledge two things are true. They're the best team in the country and they haven't played anybody. Right? I mean, you can't control your schedule. You can only control what you do to that schedule.
Absolutely.
And they've dominated that schedule. I mean, do I need to remind you all that their championship team last year lost to a 6-5 team and almost lost to a 6-5 Nebraska team or 6-6 Nebraska team? Right? Like, their schedule last year wasn't any great shakes outside of, the Penn State game either in conference play. And they didn't look good week after week. Their schedule's been soft this year, but they're dominating that schedule. That's what good teams do. But it will be nice to see their offense go against a playoff caliber-ish defense. And that's where to your point, Vince, I think we will learn something about this Ohio State offensive line. If they just do a good job against Michigan, then I'll say, okay, that line is truly coming together. That means running for at least 150 yards, at least 4.5, to 5 yards a carry, and then doing a good job overall of giving Julian saying time to play.
Yeah,
if you do those things without Jeremiah Smith, without Cardinal Tate, that tells me something. You're like, well, what does 150 yards have to do with not having those guys? You can defend Ohio State's run game a whole lot different when you don't have to defend against Cardinal Tate and Jeremiah Smith.
100%.
That's the point. You can put more resources towards it. So if
Yep.
you can still go out and pound away 150 plus yards, average 4.5 to 5 yards a carry, assuming that Smith and Tate don't play or aren't healthy, like 100% healthy, then, that tells me a little something about this offensive line. It's never going to be elite. Their line last year wasn't elite. It just has to be good. They're very similar to what we talked about with Notre Dame, Vince. The Notre Dame offensive line doesn't have to be the 2015 or 2017 offensive line. You just got to get a body on a body and let the running backs work. That's the key.
Okay, there it is. I was curious about that because, obviously we're all going to be watching this game tomorrow at noon. I mean, it's one of the biggest games of the year. Everybody's going to be watching it. And so, like, what are we watching for outside of the outcome and that kind of a thing, but like specifically, diving into the matchups and all that kind of stuff. So that's an interesting piece of that game. So prediction time. Where do you see this game going? I will hit first here. I'll be honest. I've been wrong the last few years. I thought Ohio State was going to thump Michigan the last few years, and it hasn't happened. And one of these days, like, I'm going to be right. Like, eventually,
unless Michigan has a bit of a run like Ohio State had from let's go look that up. Remember, from 2012 to 2019, Ohio State won every single game. And from 2004 to 2019, Ohio State won all but one game in that stretch. That was 2011. So, yeah, you'd like to – and that was the year that they had Luke Fickell as their head coach. You'd like to think so, but if Michigan has a similar run to what Ohio State had, you're going to be wrong a lot over the years. But I don't think you're going to be wrong this year. Please continue.
Well, and that's fair. That is fair. I feel like from a football standpoint, I've watched Ohio State. I've watched Michigan. They're not equal teams right now. And I think that, and I thought this last year that Ohio State's going to have a major chip on their shoulder, which they should have had last year, not made the mistakes that they did and allowed Michigan to win that game. Excuse me. But at the same time, this Ohio State team so far in the first 11 games is better than the Ohio State team of last year. It's are
in the regular season.
In the regular season, right?
What Ohio State was in the regular season. Agreed.
And that's the same. First 11 games, that's what we're talking about. And I just feel like there is a lot of noise out there from people that Ohio State hasn't played anybody. They haven't been challenged, all of these different things. All of these things are, in my opinion, should be motivators for this team. Like, okay, we haven't played anybody? Okay. Like, watch what we do now. And a couple of our guys may not even play. Watch what we do. That's got to be the mentality of this game. It worries me, like with Coach Day, is he going to get him fired up enough? Like, you shouldn't need a head coach to get you fired up for this game. Like, this game alone should get you fired up. If you go to Ohio State or you go to Michigan, it should just be like, we're playing in the game. Like, this, I don't need any external motivation here. Like, let's get after it. But can Ryan Day get his guys up? I don't know. I think that's a legitimate question at this point. Yeah, he's got a national championship in his back pocket. I don't have that, right? But I think that there is enough out there to make me question that. But at the same time, I got to think Ohio State's coming in this game ready to roll, man. And so I think it's going to be Ohio State 31, Michigan 10. I'm going to give them 10 in this game. I am not convinced that on a consistent basis in this game that Michigan's going to be able to put up points. That's my only thing. I don't trust the true freshman quarterback enough. He can make plays. I've seen him make some plays. He is not consistent yet. He's a true freshman. I don't expect him to be, but he's not. And so I just don't know if he's going to be consistent enough in this game. So 31-10 is my prediction.
We're close. I'm 34-17. I do think it'll be somewhat of a competitive, hard-hitting game early. It just almost always is.
Sure.
I think Michigan's going to come out fired up. Michigan thinks that they're playing for the playoffs. I don't think that that's the case that some people think that it is. Look, you got to understand, man, people need to make their clicks, and they've got one more week to make clicks about the playoffs in reference to Michigan, so they got to do it. Michigan would need a lot of chaos to happen to jump into the playoffs. But is it possible? Absolutely, it's possible. But you got to handle business against Ohio State. So I think they're going to come out fired up, play physical. I think it'll be a somewhat competitive game early. I think Ohio State pulls away, whether it be late second quarter or the third quarter. I just think the athletes start to take over a little bit. I think the Ohio State defense starts to make some plays, and they win. I got the Buckeyes winning 34-17.
Okay, we're in the neighborhood. We're definitely in the neighborhood, which means you're taking the over, I do believe, in this game. And I'm taking the under. So there you go.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump into game number 2 on the docket, and that is the ACC. Number 12, Miami, 9-2. On the road at number 22, Pittsburgh, 8-3. They are playing in Pittsburgh, Acrisure Stadium, I guess. It's Heinz Field. They're playing in Pittsburgh. The game tips off at noon on ABC. Miami favored by 6.5, according to our friends at FanDuel. The over-under set just under 50 at 49.5. Brian, your thoughts on Miami and Pitt? I think this one is going to be a fun one.
It will be, and it's going to be. I mean, there's a ton on the table for both teams, Vince. I mean, this is a game where you talk about what's at stake. Both teams are still fighting for the playoffs. Different paths, but both still fight for the playoffs. And when you look at the things that Pitt needs to happen for them to get into the playoffs, those things aren't happening until after this game gets played, because they're battling against Virginia and SMU for a berth to the ACC title game. Well, Virginia kicks off tomorrow at 7:00, and then SMU kicks off tomorrow at 8:00. So Pitt gets that first crack. So if Pitt wins and one of those teams lose, then Pitt has a chance to go to the ACC championship game. If they make the ACC championship game and win it, they're in the playoffs because they'll be one of the 5 highest ranked conference champions. For Miami, you get a shot at the end of the regular season to go on the road against a ranked opponent and win to kind of make your final statement of, hey, we belong. And for Miami, there's 2 paths to the playoffs. One is you make such a dominant statement that the committee has no choice but to, put you into the top 10, which is really the cutoff. Or B, you win your game and then you kind of cross your fingers and hope for some upsets. You hope that Alabama gets beat. You hope that, Ole Miss gets beat today, which right now, the way the Mississippi State defense is playing, that's not going to happen. I mean, there's not a lot of defense being played in this game. Not a lot of tackling going on in this game.
For either team.
But, does Ole Miss get upset? Does Oklahoma get upset by LSU? Does Alabama get upset by Auburn? There's all these things that you're then, rooting for. You win your game at noon, and then you're rooting for one of those upsets, because I do think Miami has a shot that if one of Oklahoma, Ole Miss, maybe Oregon, that's still debatable. Oregon's really far away from Miami on the computer numbers. Yeah. But maybe Oregon or Bama, if one of those teams loses, but especially the 2 lost teams,
Right.
Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Bama, one of those teams lose, and then Texas Tech beats BYU in the Big 12 title game, you're in if you're Miami.
That's the group. That's the group right there. Yeah, 100%.
Right. So they're playing for that, and the statement you make in this game against Pitt is going to go a long way towards, what the committee is going to see in you when it comes to making that kind of decision.
Yeah, this one is very interesting because if Miami can go out and they can thump Pitt at Pitt, and the temperature is going to be in the 30s, and all the things that are supposed to be negatives towards Miami, if they can go out there and thump Pitt, that's a huge resume booster for them. There's no doubt about it. And the Miami noise will get a lot louder. And I will say that it will be deserved as well, because that'll be a very, very good win on the road for Miami. It doesn't erase the rest of their resume, but that's a great way to end your season, because the odds of them making the ACC championship are like, is there a chance? Yes, but it is about the slimmest of margins possible. And so this is their last opportunity to make that statement. And so that would be a massive statement if they can go out there and they can just be dominant over Pitt.
I missed what you said, Vince. What is it about Miami that is this?
Oh, I'm saying they have a very slim chance of going to the ACC championship. Like a lot of stuff has to happen.
I think they're officially out. I think they're out now. Yeah.
Okay.
What's happening.
I just remember there being a long list of things that had to happen, and
some of the things that needed to happen didn't go their way last week. So I'm pretty sure that Miami's out. I think Duke still has a crazy chance, but I think Miami's basically out.
Either way, this is going to be your last chance to make a statement to the committee.
Yeah.
And they have an opportunity.
Now, easier path to dominate Pitt and then hope for just one upset.
Just one.
They just need one upset to happen in front of them, and they're in.
Yep.
This has been what's so annoying about this, the constant complaining that Miami fans have had against Notre Dame. And as I pointed to a graphic and they just refuse to read it, like, you have a better case to be ranked higher than Alabama than you do to be ranked higher than Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Because all you have with Notre Dame is head-to-head. That's it. That's all you have over Notre Dame. Now, that's a big one, but that's it. You got a lot of advantages over Alabama, and they just refuse to use those to their advantage. But you go out there and beat Pitt in a game where you're clearly the better team. That's the kind of statement you want to make. So how do you do that? This is going to be a very interesting matchup, Vince. Let's talk about the actual matchup.
Yep.
Number one, there's some advantages that I think Pitt has in this game, and there's some advantages that Miami have. Let's start with the Miami side. Pitt is a very undersized front, but they're very fast and they fly around. What Notre Dame was able to do against them was use that speed and lack of size against them. Notre Dame bullied them a little bit up front and then hit some shots down the field. That's the recipe for Miami. They're going to have to be physical up front, push the Miami team around, limit the big mistakes, the big negatives, the sacks, the tackles for loss. Notre Dame couldn't limit the turnovers, but they were able to make up for it by having some turnovers of their own. But the big thing for Miami against this Pitt defense, which is very good stopping the run, is it's not a great pass defense. And if you can protect Carson Beck, there are definitely some pass game advantages that Miami has in this game. Some matchups, I should say, matchup advantages that you have in this game. If Carson Beck gets a clean pocket, I don't think that Pitt has anybody that can cover Malachi Toney. I think Elijah Lofton, who hasn't done a ton for Pitt this year, could be a guy also at tight end, as we saw with Notre Dame when Eli Raridon had a big game. And he's a talented player. Lofton is. They just don't target him a ton because there's just so many weapons in Miami that I could see him being a factor. But that's going to be the key. There's some, and then you can look at any of the receivers they have: C.J. Daniels, Keelan Marion, Josh Moore, the freshman. They have weapons. Can you protect Carson Beck enough to allow him to comfortably throw the football? That's the advantage that Miami has. On the other side of it, looking at the matchup of the Miami offense against the Pitt defense, Miami doesn't give up a lot of sacks, but they have when they have struggled offensively, they give up a lot of pressure. And they have a quarterback that doesn't handle pressure very well. And when I mean pressure, I don't mean big game pressure. I mean literal defensive pressure. He doesn't handle it well. He's very prone to mistakes when he, when in those situations, Vince. And so they're going to need the offensive line to give him time to throw the football. If they give him time to throw the football, then I think they've got a shot to rip up Pitt pretty good.
Yes,
and Notre Dame had a couple sacks they gave up of CJ Carr, but overall CJ had a pretty clean pocket. If Miami can do the same, then I think they can move the ball on Pitt. If they don't, then I think Pitt has an opportunity to create some mistakes. They are a very opportunistic defense. They do a lot of things with their coverage structure to try to confuse the quarterback, as we saw with Notre Dame, with CJ Carr not seeing that backside robber safety and throwing a pick on a front side dig. Those are things that they can do to create problems. They brought a pressure, trying to run a screen, linebacker runs right into the throw, and they go for a pick six. That's kind of been what's worked for them. They did similar things. I mean, Georgia Tech's going in for a score last week. Pitt intercepts them, takes it back 99 yards for a touchdown. They're going to need some of that stuff against Pitt in this matchup of the Miami offense against the Pitt defense. Pitt's going to need that. And, so that's an interesting one on that side. Now, the other side of the ball is an interesting battle as well, Vince.
Yeah, I want to comment a little bit on Pitt's defense because, their vaunted run defenses, they're going to have to make Miami one-dimensional. And if they do that, they're also going to have to get pressure. Like, it's okay to make them one-dimensional if you're Miami. Like, okay, you take away our run game, we can, the strength of our offense is throwing the football. And so you've got to do more than just make them one-dimensional, in my opinion. And I think Pitt can take away Miami's run game. Their run game's not great, right? Their run game is a complement to their pass game right now. And so you can take away their run game, but you got to put pressure on Beck. You've got to make him make mistakes, because when he makes mistakes, that's when the offense obviously sputters. I mean, yes, that's like John Madden analysis. I realize that's very obvious, but look at their games where the offense hasn't been as good. It's when Carson Beck is throwing picks, and it's when Carson Beck is under pressure. That's what you absolutely
have to do.
On the ball
well in those games. Right. I mean, think about it. They didn't run the ball great against Notre Dame, and their offense sputtered. They didn't run the ball well against Louisville. They only rushed for 63 yards against Louisville. Carson Beck throws 4 picks. That's not a coincidence. They ran for 159 yards against SMU, but they needed 40 carries to get there.
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't play well. He doesn't throw. They only run for 123 yards against Syracuse. Only beat Syracuse 38-10 in a game that was 14-0 at halftime. They didn't run the ball great in the first half against Stanford. Game's tied 7-7 at halftime. They ran the ball a lot better in the second half. They win that game 42-7.
Right.
They ran the ball great against NC State. 214 rushing yards, only 37 carries. They blow NC State out 41-7. A week later, they only rushed for 83 yards and 30 carries against Virginia Tech. And in the fourth quarter, it's basically a one-score game at one point in time in the second half of that game, I should say. So, that's the thing. It's a real simple recipe, Vince. When Miami's balanced, that's a hard offense to stop. When they're not balanced and they're one-dimensional, they're much easier to stop. So, to your point, for Pitt, stop the run game, make Carson Beck beat you, and then hope that if you're going to do that, that you can then put some pressure on him and force him into some mistakes.
Let's flip it over to the other side of the football, because you've got Pitt coming in. You got the Heinzel kid, who's a true freshman. Every game he started, he has had a good game except one, right? And if Miami is going to do what they need to do in order to impress the committee and all the things that we talked about.
Should's the right answer. If you're as good as you keep saying you are, Miami, if Miami fans, Miami team, if you're ACC, if you guys are all crying for weeks about how good Miami is, they're being screwed, they're being left out. Well, Notre Dame showed that a playoff caliber team should be able to go on the road against Pitt and beat them soundly. I mean, a playoff caliber team did that 2 weeks ago. So if you are who you say you are, you should be able to go into Pitt and do exactly what you're talking about, Vince.
Okay, fair enough. So they should go in and they should make life miserable for Pitt on offense. They should be in the backfield. They should be making a freshman make freshman mistakes. They should turn the ball over. Like, that is what is going to win them this game, honestly, is this side of the football for me. It is, can you force Pitt into some mistakes offensively and get the football back to your offense and all of those kinds of things. I think, we hear all about Miami's defense, their front, all these things. Well, that front needs to play in this game. Like, they need to be dominant in this game for me to believe, and for anybody else to believe, that Miami is who Miami thinks they are. If they can go out and dominate Pitt and they make Heinschel, I think it's Heinschel, right? That's how you pronounce it. If they can make him mortal, then they're going to win this game. Like that's how I feel about this. And so that's what I need to see. That's the crutch for me.
Think of the missed opportunities that they have now that field is no longer Heinz Field. You have Mason Heinschel playing at Heinz Field, the Pitt
Right?
Panthers. Like that'd have been great. But no,
seriously,
that's the key right there, right? Like what was the fuel behind Miami's beating Notre Dame? It was their defensive line played great.
100%. Yes.
Kicked Notre Dame's offensive line's butt.
Made him look very, very average in that game.
That's being kind.
Oh, well, fair enough.
That's being kind. Yeah. That's the 2 months of it sinking in of,
yeah.
Like it was bad. It's still only one game, and that's what people know. It doesn't trump the other 11 games, but what it does is it creates a recipe for Miami. When your D-line dominates, you are a hard team to beat. When your D-line gets dominated, that you are much easier to beat. And, that's the same thing. That Miami has the same goals that Pitt does. Make Pitt one-dimensional. Shut down their run game. Make Mason Heinschel beat you and then put pressure on the quarterback. If you do that, it could look a lot like the Notre Dame game from a couple weeks ago. Because the advantage that Pitt has is, I think, we've talked about this for months, Pitt has a very good secondary, very talented secondary. And when that secondary is able to kind of go out there Pitt has a very good receiving core, not secondary, receiving core. And Vince, when they're able to kind of get out there, get Kenny Johnson going, get their slot receiver going, get that ball spread around, that's when they're very difficult to beat. And what that requires is your offensive line playing well. The problem is you have not been great in the offensive line in a lot of your big games this year. They don't run the ball incredibly well this season. Fortunately for them, they are coming off of one of their, I would actually argue their best rushing performance of the season against Georgia Tech. They ran all over Georgia Tech and went for 186 yards in that game. That's literally the most yards they've rushed for all season. They're not a very good running team. They don't need to run the ball for a ton of yards. And they ran for 186 as a team. But Jakarian Turner rushed for 201 by himself. They had some sacks and some things mixed in there. You don't need to do that to beat Miami. You just got to get to like 150. Like you've got to do enough in the ground game, and Desmond Reed's questionable, so I don't know if he's going to play. But you need to do enough against Miami to make them have to commit some resources to stopping the run, and then that creates some opportunities for you to throw the football. What happened against Notre Dame is Notre Dame's box could just dominate Pitt's ground game. And it made Pitt one-dimensional. So you've got all your pass game resources dropping into coverage and making sure that they couldn't throw the football. Can Miami shut them down with their box as well? If they can, then Pitt's offense could have a tough time scoring, and this could end up being a lower-scoring game. And ultimately, Vince, that's where I'm at in this game. Pitt's offense has to show me that they can move the ball on a good defense.
Yes, 100%.
Great win last week against Georgia Tech. That's not a very good defense. It's not. We've said that for weeks. Trev and I have said that in our show. That's a bad Georgia Tech defense. That's why we don't think this Georgia Tech team is as good as they were last year. Their record's better because they have a way easier schedule than they did last year.
Last year was brutal.
I mean, it was insane. I mean, last year, dude, when you look at when you look at Georgia Tech's schedule last year, man, like let's read you this schedule, guys. They had to play Notre Dame and Georgia, two playoff teams. Let me pull up Georgia Tech right here. Their losses were to a 10-win Syracuse team by 3 on the road. They lost to a 9-win Louisville team on the road. They lost to the national runners-up Notre Dame on a neutral field. They lost to SEC champ Georgia on the road by 2, and then their only bad loss was at Virginia Tech. But Virginia Tech last year was a bowl team, and Lane Stadium is a relatively difficult place to play for some. So, like, if they had last year's schedule, they'd have the same exact record they had last year, maybe worse, in my opinion. But when I look at it, Vince, it's I don't know that Pitt's their offensive line has to show me that they can handle a defensive line like Miami's enough to run the ball and protect the quarterback before I'm going to go predict it. as a Notre Dame fan, I would love for Pitt to smack Miami.
Oh, 100%.
But right now, I don't have my I was going to say I don't have my Notre Dame fan hat on. Kind of do.
Yeah, you kind of do. Yeah.
But right now I'm looking at this as an analyst. As an analyst, the matchups don't favor Pitt in the trenches. And that's a lot of times, Vince, where things are for me. It's all about the trenches. Can you dominate in the trenches? Can you win in the trenches? The way you beat road teams, the way you go and beat ranked teams on the road is you dominate in the trenches. And if I had to, and when it's going to be cold, it's going to be windy. And when I predict who's going to win that game, who has more talent? Miami. Mm-hmm. Who's got the better lines? Miami. Who's got the better coaching? That's a question mark. Both of them kind of don't do well in a lot of big games. So that's why I look at it and say I think Miami's got more advantages than Pitt. And I think they are going to win the trench battle. If I'm wrong on that, I will be wrong about the score. But I got Miami winning 24-21. It's going to be a good game.
Yeah.
I think Pitt can hang with them, but I think Miami's physicality is what's going to carry the day at the end of it. At the end.
Everything you said is 1,000% accurate. And I think it comes down to, like I said before, it comes down to can Pitt's offense put points up against Miami's defense and keep up, whatever that means, right? It could be 21 points. It could be 20 points. Like keep up means, can you keep up? I'm not saying this is going to be a shootout by any stretch of the imagination, because I do not think that will be the case. Now, there is a little bit of homerism in my pick, but to your point, you said 24-21. I mean, that's less than one possession. It feels like, you know what I mean? That's the ball bounces one different way and it's a different scenario. I actually have Pitt winning 21-20. So I'm right there in the same as far as like point totals and the way I think I see the game going. It's a hope for me. There's no doubt about it. I just it's a perfect world scenario if Pitt can just beat Miami, and I don't care how it happens.
Pitt to win.
Yes, 100%.
I want them to win. I look at the matchups and I just don't think Pitt has what it takes in the trenches to win this game.
I get it.
But if Pitt's lines can step up, then I think they win. The problem for Pitt also is that with it being a 30-something degree day with some wind, you're going to need the run game to be even more impactful. And if I had to bet on one team's run game over the another, I'm betting on Miami's run game more than I'm betting on Pitt's run game. And that's a factor in this as well.
I do think the weather is going to be a factor. And, this will be the third game outside of Florida for Miami. I think the weather's going to be a factor. And you've played in cold weather games. I've played in cold weather games. I've coached in cold weather games. You're either a cold weather guy or you're not. I'm sorry. Like once you hit somebody and you're freezing cold and you feel that sting throughout your entire body, you either absorb that thing and you keep on going, or you're like, dude, I'm out. Like this is not for me. I just wonder if Miami is going to be able to handle it. I'm being honest. Like that. Normally I'm not like, oh, well, both teams have to play in it. Like weather's not a thing. I think weather is a bit of a thing here. You're going to see all those Miami guys with all you're going to see is their eyeballs. You know what I mean? They're going to have those head things on. You're going to see their breath. Like, I think that is what keeps this game close. Yeah. Is what I'll say.
Sorry. I wasn't sighing at you, Vince. I was sighing at that tip ball interception that Ole Miss just had.
Of course.
But bigger thing for me is, unfortunately, that's an emotional thing that and a mental thing I can't gauge. What I can say, however,
sure.
is that Miami's more built for a bad weather game than Pitt is, ironically. Pitt's the small, fast, athletic team. Miami's the big physical team. I mean, in theory, Miami should be more geared to play well in this game. But as you said, it's a mental thing.
Exactly.
Like when I remember watching the Sun Bowl in 2010, and I remember when they showed when the broadcast first started, and they showed the Miami players running out of the tunnel with just looking like they were playing in like the ice bowl,
Yes.
I said, this game's a wrap. And then Michael Floyd's out there like with short sleeve shirts on, and
exactly.
Harrison Smith's out there with short sleeve shirts on. I'm like, this ain't gonna be close.
Right.
Right.
Right. And I guess for me, because of that game in particular and games of that kind, like I've seen this before. I've seen teams tap out because it's cold. Now granted, that was the Sun Bowl. Like, not a lot riding on that game.
Their coach had been fired.
Right.
I remember them interviewing Al Golden up in the press box and those type of things.
Yep,
but
exactly. This game means something.
Right.
This game is for the rest of your season. Like there's a lot riding on this game. And I will also say this is going to tell us a lot about who Miami is too.
Oh, yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like not only just from being cold, but they're going to have to overcome that mentally, physically, like all of it. So,
well, look, I mean, let's look at this, Vince. The last 3 years under Mario Cristobal, in 2023, they went on the road 3 times in November. They lost to Florida twice, 3 times. They lost to NC State by 2 touchdowns. They lost at Florida State, and they beat Boston College, who went 7-6 that year. So not a very good BC team, but you beat them. Then last year, Miami, I'm going to go back to Miami. So that was Miami in 2023. In 2024, Miami played 2 road games in November. They lost at Georgia Tech and they lost at Syracuse. Syracuse is indoors, so you can't blame the cold on that one. And then this year, they went out and played 2. They've played 2 games in November so far. They lost at SMU. They beat Virginia Tech. Didn't play that great. Couldn't put Virginia Tech away. And now they have to play Pitt. So that's the thing is like, okay, how good are you, Miami? You've choked in November every year. If you can beat a Pitt team on the road in the cold, I think this says something about Miami turning the corner a bit as a program under Cristobal. I do believe so.
I think that's fair.
Now we'll just find out if they can actually do that or not.
No, I think that's absolutely fair. So we'll see what happens.
So you have 21-20 Pitt. I have 24-21 Miami. This is one of those ones, Vince, where I absolutely think that hope that you're right, but just need to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. All right, the bots are crazy today, by the way.
I know.
I haven't seen bots in a long time.
In a year.
They're they're for full force here today. All right, let's move on to game number 3 today. It is going to be number 6, Oregon, on the road. They're 10-1 against Washington, 8-3, one of the best home teams in the country. It's at Husky Stadium. Time is 3:30 Eastern. It's on CBS. Our friends at FanDuel have Oregon the favorite by 6.5 points. The over-under set at 51.5. Last chance for Oregon to make a statement here that they belong. They made a pretty good statement last week. Let's see if they can continue with their statement and let everybody know that they are a team that is going to be reckoned with in the playoff. Brian, your thoughts on this game overall?
Well, I think this is a game. First of all, the one thing I would be I'm not a betting person, but if I was, I don't know that I love the spread, but I love the over-under. I'd be a little surprised if this game is under what we just talked about. I think this is going to be a little bit of a higher scoring game than maybe the over-under shows. But look, this is an interesting game because we're going to learn a lot about both of these football teams. With Oregon, obviously the win last week against USC was huge. I mean, they were the better team. Vince, we were kind of watching that game in the second half of the Notre Dame game because it was 56-0, and we're like, what's going on here?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Oregon was the better team. USC had some chances, couldn't take advantage because Oregon was the better team.
Yep.
Week before that, they pounded Minnesota at home. But Oregon has not been a great road team this season. Like they win, but they haven't always looked good winning. Like they're undefeated on the road, but they haven't looked good. If you look at their last, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Big Ten road games, they beat Wisconsin last year, 16-13. This year, they beat Northwestern 34-14, didn't play well. Beat Penn State in overtime. It's not a very good Penn State team. Blew out Rutgers and then needed a last-second walk-off, basically not a walk-off, but basically a walk-off field goal to beat Iowa. Now, that's a good Iowa team. Penn State's a good football team. Washington's a good football team also. And this is a much tougher place to play than all those places that they just talked about. that we just talked about. And this is a good Washington team. So do they have enough horses to get there? I don't know. The committee chair admitted last week, look, we like Oregon a lot, and they were bolstered by sort of the metrics. Their on-paper resume wasn't looking good, and now it does, because you have that win over USC. That was a good win. The Iowa win is still a good win. I know Iowa's not ranked anymore, but that's still a good football team. The committee doesn't arbitrarily decide once you're outside the top 25, you're no longer a good team. And Iowa's a good football team. So I think this is a chance to go beat a good Washington team that was ranked at one point in time in the committee's rankings. I think this locks them into the playoffs and locks them into a home game. If you lose the game, I don't know that they're out. There's a good chance of it. But at the very least, it knocks them down to, I don't think a loss drops Oregon out. I'd still have them in over Miami. I'd still have them in over, depending on Miami. Now, if Miami goes out there and annihilates Pitt today, then we could have that conversation. But, I'd say like there's still a team that, doesn't have a lot of great wins. Their 2 losses would be good losses. They're building their resume around beating USC, basically. I don't know if that's enough to be ahead of, Notre Dame still, Bama still, Miami, BYU. Is it enough to stay ahead of those teams? I don't know the answer to that. I think
it would be a great discussion, though. It'd be a great discussion.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah.
But I do think it gets them to fall behind Notre Dame. I think the question is, do they fall out or not? I think that's going to be the thing that we're going to have to learn here as we kind of get closer and closer into this thing, Vince, is can they do that? Now, for Washington, you're not necessarily playing for anything in regard to, like, you're not playing for the Big Ten championship, but you're definitely playing to try to show that you're an ascending program. They're an 8-3 team right now. They, 2 of their losses you can live with. They, battled Ohio State, lost 24-6, but battled. Had a bad loss to Michigan. They didn't play well against Michigan, but it was on the road. That Wisconsin loss right now is killing them. And at the time, it looked like just an awful loss. But now that you look at it, Vince, Wisconsin's playing a lot better football right now. And I know that's kind of crazy to think about, because they were terrible for a while. But in their last 4 games, they lost to Oregon 21-7. They beat Washington. They lost to Indiana by 24, but that game was 10-7 at halftime. And then they came out last week and smacked Illinois. So Wisconsin's clearly playing better here coming down the stretch. Washington, how do you respond? Hey, look, man, adversity happens. How do you respond to that adversity? How did Washington respond to just laying an egg against Wisconsin? They came out their last 2 games and blew out Purdue 49-13 and blew out UCLA 48-14. That's what they did their last 2 games. So, are they ready for this kind of battle? Is their defense ready for this kind of battle? It's a great question. For Washington, there's really 2 parts of their team that have to play but well. Their offensive line has to protect DeMond Williams. Has to. He is a dynamic, outstanding football player. Jonah Coleman's an outstanding running back. The Boston kid at receiver is a very talented player. Washington has legit skill talent on offense. When their offense struggles, like it did against Ohio State, like it did against Michigan, like it did against Wisconsin, it's when their offensive line gets their butts kicked. If Washington's offensive line can just hold their own against Oregon's front, which is very good, they've got a shot to win this game. If Oregon dominates the trenches, this game won't be close. I mean, it is kind of close to being that simple. The other part of it, though, is the Washington secondary has to hold their water. Like that defense has been very disappointing this season. They're playing better of late, but they're going to have to limit the big plays and slow down the Oregon run game. I think those are the keys for Washington. And if you're Oregon, just keep doing what you're doing. Play great defense, run the football. Dante Moore, manage the game, get the ball where it's supposed to go to. He understands his role in that offense very well. And he's running that offense very well right now, meaning, hey, if I got to hand it off 40 times, I hand it off 40 times. If I got to throw quick game all day and complete 80% of my passes and move the chains, I'll do that. If I need to throw the ball downfield, I'll do that. And he's had a very good season for Oregon. So for Washington, your offensive line's got to hold up. And if it can, DeMond Williams can give any defense problems if his offensive line holds up. Any defense. Ohio State, We saw that early in that game. The only reason that, Washington had a second quarter lead. A lot of that was about Damon Williams. Eventually, Ohio State's defensive line started overwhelming Washington's offensive line to shut him down. But if the offensive line plays well, he can make plays on anybody. He is a dynamic special player, man. He really is. But I don't know if they can do that because this is a very good Oregon front.
Well, a lot has to go right, obviously, for Washington, and being at home is clearly a good thing for them, no doubt about it. That this is an opportunity for them to make some noise and to kind of get their name out there in the conference. People forget that Washington is a member of the Big Ten. I do. And so, this is a chance for them to make some noise in this thing, and they could go to a decent bowl game, as a Big Ten representative, if they go out and win this game, because they're going to be a 3-loss team in the Big Ten. Like that's a great season. If you're Washington, that's something you can really, really build on. Go ahead.
It also vaults them into the top 25, back into the top 25.
Absolutely.
For sure.
And you'll get your win over a top 10 team, all of those things that you can really start to build your program on. And I think that could be huge for Washington. A lot has to go right for them. I think if the offensive line for Washington can hold their water, like you mentioned, I think Oregon's secondary is gettable. I think they're gettable.
They're good, but they're not great.
Right, exactly. Like, I think they're gettable. And so that is going to be a key in this game. Again, it has to start up front. You got to give your kid time to throw the football, but I think Oregon secondary is gettable. But again, a lot of things have to happen for Washington. I want, obviously, Washington to win as a Notre Dame fan. I will be rooting for the Huskies in this one. I just don't know how realistic it is. But this is a great opportunity for Oregon, too, to prove that you're a top 6 team in this country.
Yes.
You are a playoff contender. You are a team that is to be reckoned with, because if you're a top 6 team, you go on the road, you handle business against a team like Washington. They're a good team, but you're better. You need to go handle your business. So it's a great opportunity for them as well.
It's still not completely out of the realm of possibility that Oregon can get a bye.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Because they're at 6 right now. If Ohio State gets beat by Indiana, there's a chance that Ohio State drops below Washington. Oregon.
Because then you start looking at resume.
They'd have the same loss. And then Oregon would have better wins than Ohio State, and potentially a more impressive head-to-head against Washington. If Texas Tech gets beat by BYU, they could leak Texas Tech.
Yeah, there's a couple scenarios that have to happen.
Yeah, if Georgia loses to Georgia Tech today, it could happen. There's still some, like you said, there's scenarios where they have an opportunity to get a bye. It's unlikely, but what they can do is secure the 5 seed.
Yes.
Go a long way towards securing the 5 seed.
Mm-hmm.
They would just need one team to get beat. Ohio State losing to Indiana, I think, might be enough to drop Ohio State down to 6. I don't know for sure that that's going to happen since it's in a championship game. But if Ohio State
depends
loses
on how
Michigan,
they lose. Depends on how
if
they
Ohio
lose.
State loses to Michigan, if Georgia loses to Georgia Tech, also don't expect to happen. So I don't think those things are going to happen, but they basically clinch a playoff spot if they can win. I don't care if it's by a point.
Right.
If Oregon goes on the road and beats Washington, whose only loss at home in the last 4 years is to Ohio State early this year, you've clinched a spot in the playoffs for me. You're a playoff team.
Yeah. Yep. All right, prediction time. I will go first. Obviously, the over-under here, 49.5. Expecting some points. I think you said you're expecting a bunch of points in this one. I've got Oregon winning 35-14 in this game. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
I have it a lot more competitive than you do, but I have the same team winning. I have Oregon winning 30-27. I do think this is going to be a good football game. I think this is a good Washington team. I think Damon Williams is dynamic. I think that Washington at times or Oregon has shown themselves to have some vulnerability to mobile quarterbacks. And I think you're going to see Washington be able to score at least a little bit on them early. I just don't think Washington's defense can make enough stops to beat Oregon. If I'm wrong on that, then I will be wrong about the game. But I have Oregon winning 30-27. I do have this as a much more competitive.
That's a tight game. Yeah. That's a tight
game.
If that's the case, man, again, like I said, for one of your other guys, like that's a ball bounce in one direction or the other. A 3-point game. That could be fun. And I hope it is close. I want that game to be very close. There's no doubt about it. All right. Let's move on to our next game. We're headed over to the SEC. We've got the number 14 fighting Diago Pavia's Vanderbilt 9-2 going on the road at number 19 Tennessee. They're 8-3. It's at Neyland Stadium, 3:30 kick on ESPN. Tennessee, as the home team, is favored by 2.5, which home team usually gets 3. So this is basically a pick'em game. The over-under, they're expecting lots of points in this one, 65.5, Brian. What are your thoughts on this one? Is this where we find out if Vanderbilt is legit? I mean, are they already? I think they've.
No, I think they're. I think
they are.
Well, what do you mean by legit? That's kind of my first question before I answer.
How about
what
it as an SEC contender? I mean, it's late in the season; they're not going to win the SEC. But like, is this a game where this is the last game going into the offseason without a bowl game? But like, is this one that you're like you can take on the road as far as your recruiting and you're like, we're one of the top 100%. Teams in the SEC?
This solidifies their standing as a top 5 SEC team.
Yeah, there you go.
Right now, I don't know that I'd necessarily buy that about Vanderbilt because I think Vanderbilt has built their resume off of a weak schedule. Here's their conference wins: South Carolina, LSU, Missouri, Auburn, Kentucky. Those are quality wins. Those aren't wins to be scoffed at. LSU's not as good as everybody thought they're going to be. They hadn't fired Brian Kelly yet. They're not terrible. They're 7-4. And you beat them. South Carolina is not very good, but South Carolina almost beat Alabama. They almost beat Texas A&M, and Vanderbilt went on the road and beat them 31-7. Right? I mean, they beat Missouri without their Missouri starting quarterback got knocked out. That was a bit of an ugly win. They had a 7-point win over Auburn at home. Auburn's a team that's scrappy this year. So that's a solid resume. And then they lost at Texas and got smacked at Alabama. I think they're a top half of the SEC team right now. It's top 8. Are they a top 5 SEC team? That I don't know the answer to. A top 5 SEC team beats this Tennessee team. I don't care where the game is played. If you can't beat this this Tennessee team, who has just an abysmal defense, and you are an offensive-driven team, then no, you're not a top 5 SEC team. You're a good SEC team, but you're not an elite SEC team. And so I do think there's a lot on the line for Vanderbilt. On top of just bragging rights, I think recruiting gets made a lot easier if you can win a game like this. This, with all due respect to Auburn and LSU and Missouri, those wins aren't gaining you respect amongst top 100 players in the country. Go on the road and beat Tennessee, and it does all of a sudden. And I think that's very doable. So I do think this is a big game for the future of Vanderbilt's football program because of the statement it would make. Is Tennessee a great team? Are they as good as their playoff team last year? No, but it's still a Tennessee team that right now is ranked 19th in the country,
which is better than I thought that they would be.
And it's better than what they should be.
Well, fair enough.
Well, that's. Yeah, look, Vince, this is who they've beat. They've beat Syracuse, East Tennessee State, UAB, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Kentucky, New Mexico State, and Florida. The only reason they're ranked 19th is because they're in the SEC. That is not a top 20 football team, in my opinion. And
they keep going up. Like we were talking about when they stuck them in at 25. We're like, oh, that's not where they should be, and they just keep
because they're getting SEC hype. I mean, I think a 3-loss Washington team is better than Tennessee, but that's just the SEC. That's why I don't put as much stock in the whole, we got ranked wins. Yeah, it's because your league is overhyped and half your league is in the top 25 every year, whether they deserve it or not.
Right.
So anyway, that's a different story for a different day. But it's still a quality SEC team.
Sure. And Tennessee's a hard place to play, too.
Yes. They're a top 8 SEC team. And it's still Vanderbilt. It's Vanderbilt. So
correct.
Yes, you go on the road and win this game. You have showed me a little something.
Well, and as people have pointed out in the chat, Clark Lee just inked a new 6-year extension. So the people at Vanderbilt see what they have in Clark Lee, and they want to keep him around, which is a smart move. Because
go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, if I'm the AD at any of these top schools that have an opening, Clark Lee is one of my first phone calls, regardless of whether I know he's going to say no or not. I'm still calling him. I'm still doing my due diligence.
I'm calling him, but I'm not sure that I'm completely sold on him just yet as a guy that should be at a bigger place because He's a very unique situation
at a place like Vanderbilt.
It's his alma mater. It's a blue collar type of place. The expectations aren't as high. He's had one great year, where he's beat 0 top 25 teams. James Franklin did that a couple times. You had multiple 9-win seasons in the years at Vanderbilt. Remember when they were pretty good under him, and years where they won 0 top 25 games. So I'm not quite ready there, but I am 100% think that Vanderbilt was right in locking Clark Lee down. I'm not saying he's not that kind of coach, Vince. I'm just saying I need to see it for more than 1 year, even at a place like Vanderbilt. But I'm happy for him. I'm glad he signed that extension. I think he's a perfect place for his personality, and I mean that as a compliment.
That's fair.
Clark Lee wants smart, blue, hardworking kids that want to do things the right way on and off the field. Like that's what really I think where he fits well. And I think this game could go there. Matchup wise, it really comes down to you've got an elite Vandy offense, not an elite, an outstanding Vandy offense against a really bad Tennessee defense, especially defending the run or the pass. I mean, they've had 4 games this year. They've given up over 300 yards passing, including to New Mexico State. They gave up 330 yards to Kentucky. They gave up 371 to UAB, 304 to Georgia, 274 to Syracuse. They've given up over 200 rushing yards twice this year. This is not a very good Vanderbilt or Tennessee defense. It is, however, a very good Tennessee offense with Joey Aguilar at quarterback. They have been over 400 yards. They have been at least 410 yards or better in every single game they've played this year. They've been at least 5.3 yards per play or better in every single game that they've played this year. So their offense is very good. It's balanced. Joey Aguilar obviously had a heck of a year. Running back wise, Deshaun Bishop, Star Thomas have both had over 500 yards rushing. Peyton Lewis has almost 300 yards rushing. Joey Aguilar has 3 rushing touchdowns. They've got very good weapons on the perimeter, a lot of different weapons on the perimeter that they can go to, including their running backs. So 2 very good offenses going against 2 very not very good defenses. And that's going to be the matchup. Which defense can make the most stops in this game, and which quarterback can avoid the big mistakes? I think those are the keys to this football game, Vince. I think in a lot of ways, these are 2 very similar football teams and how they're built and what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. Which team can play better in their not as good areas? Can Vandy run the ball? Can Vandy make some plays against the run? Can Vandy make some stops? Can Tennessee make some stops? Can they pressure Diego Pavia? Can they force him in completions and stops? Those are all things that we, are going to need to see. That it's going to go a long way towards determining who wins this football game.
I think there's going to obviously, I agree with Vegas. I think this is going to be a very high scoring game. They've got, the over under at 51.5. My total is higher than that. I think
I'm shocked that that's what the over under was.
Yeah. The knock on Diego Pavia there for a while was he doesn't show up in big games, 160 yards against LSU, 129 yards against Missouri. And then he's like, hold my beer. 365 against Texas, 377 against Auburn, 484 against Kentucky. He's got it in him to put up some points or put up some yards, put up, all of it. And so against a Tennessee defense, which is suspect at best, he's going to have another day. And he's going to have an opportunity to put up a bunch of yards. He's going to have an opportunity to guide this offense to a bunch of points. And I think that this is going to be a shootout. This could very well be whoever has the ball last. It could be one of those types of games, Brian. And that's kind of where I have my prediction is a one possession
I will say
game.
This real quick. I do think that Diego Pavia still has something to prove to me. I mean, yes,
I agree. I agree.
It's great what he did against Texas, but he did a lot of that once the game was like a blowout. I mean, he brought him back, but like his play early is why they were getting blown out.
Right.
Auburn is a good defense sometimes, not other times. I mean, I still think the critique of are you good against good defenses is still a legitimate criticism.
Okay.
I mean, LSU's not a very good team, but LSU has a very good defense, and he ran the ball pretty well in that game, but he didn't throw the ball overly well in that game. And I think this is an opportunity for him to silence some critics. And then, we'll find out if he's going to get a 13th year of eligibility next season. We'll find that out here in the offseason.
Ridiculous. Ridiculous.
He's gonna. I've said this before, but his career is gonna end when his son is going into his freshman season. Like, it's ridiculous. But
they're trying to do the LeBron James thing where he gets to play on the same team as his kid. Like,
exactly, in college.
Yeah, right.
In college, yeah,
right.
But in all seriousness, he's a gritty football player. If they're going to win this game, they're going to need him to make some big throws. He's going to have to throw the ball effectively. So we'll see if he can. I'm curious. What's your? I think the over. I am going with the over on this, Vince, but that's a high over, and I completely get why it's a high over.
Sure. Yeah.
But let's make some predictions for this one.
It's funny because my over, as I'm looking at it, is only a 0.5 higher. I've got Tennessee winning 35-31. And so that would put my total at 66.
So close.
And at 65.5. So I'm taking the over, but about as close as you can be and still take the over.
We're so close, Vince.
What do you got?
34-30.
Oh,
I have Vanderbilt winning,
nice.
though. I have Vanderbilt winning 34-30.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could see that.
You said you have Tennessee winning?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. I have Vanderbilt winning this one.
Vandy is a different team on the road to a degree. I think they really do protect their home field very, very well, and it's a very unique, venue in the SEC. It's a small, very cozy, even though they've done all the renovations and everything, it's still a very cozy situation right there in the middle of the city, and they defend that home turf very, very well. I think Tennessee, that's the next step for this team, is to be able to go on a road in a raucous environment like that and win a game, and maybe they can do it tomorrow. Maybe that's a possibility. Just not ready to predict it. That's where I'm at on this one.
I'm with you. I'm just not a huge fan of Tennessee's team this year. I agree with everything you said. I just don't think Tennessee's that great. I'm with you. I have 34-30 Vanderbilt. So we've got a very similar score. We just have a different.
Well, like I said, one possession game.
It'll be a back and forth game.
Yeah.
We see it same way. It's a back and forth game. Yep. I just think the Vandy makes enough. Now, if you're, Miami, if you're Utah, if you're BYU, you're one of those teams kind of on the fringe. This is the kind you want Tennessee to win this football game, because this is the kind of road win over the number 19 team that could vault them back up the rankings. Could vault Vandy, because Vandy got passed by Miami this week.
Yeah.
If Miami goes on the road and struggles with Pitt, even in a win, but Vandy goes on the road and beats Tennessee with a little something on it, what's the case for not putting Vandy right back ahead of Miami?
Yeah, good call.
So that's something that I'm very curious to see if they're able to get done in this game.
Well, and I'm a big fan of upset, so go Vandy. It'll be fun to watch. And I've always been a Clark Lee fan, so love to see when he's successful.
Excellent dude. Yeah. Excellent. Hey, look, we give Brian Kelly a lot of flack. We do. But his last 3 defensive coordinator hires were absolutely home run hires.
100%.
And they proved it as D coordinators, and they're all proving it as head coaches right now.
And he took a chance on Clark Lee. That was he's
never been a D coordinator before.
He was a linebacker coach that got brought in by the last DC, which was Mike Elko. Just brought in like, hey, I'm coming if I can bring my guy. And he's like, you know what? When Elko left, he's like, I want you to be like that. He took a chance there. Paid off in a big way, but he definitely took a chance. So give credit where it's due. No doubt. Final game we are going to talk about today, Brian, number 10, the Alabama Crimson Tide on the road at Auburn. They're 5-6. They're at Jordan-Hare Stadium. It is the night game, but not the night game because, it starts 3 hours earlier. 7:30 p.m. start, ABC. Alabama only favored by 5.5 in this one. The over-under set at 46.5 by our friends at FanDuel. Alabama, Auburn. I hate it when people say this, and I'm going to say it. This is where you throw the records out, because Alabama, Auburn, man, you don't know what's going to happen in this game, regardless of who's ranked where when they come in. This is going to be a tough game. I think it could be close. We'll see.
Well, and Alabama's not playing well. And you don't know who Auburn is from week to week. I mean, Auburn 1 week can go on the road and give Arkansas their most convincing SEC loss to date. They went on the road and beat Baylor. They went on the road and took Vanderbilt absolutely down to the wire in that game. Played Missouri tough, had a 10-0 lead over Georgia, and were getting screwed by the officials away from being 17-0 up on Georgia. This team also got beat at home by Kentucky.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So you don't know what to make of this team, but they've been scrappy all year. And I'll be honest, I think part of the reason they've looked better in the last 2 games is because Hugh Freeze got fired. He was holding that team back. Some of his insistence. I saw college football nerds tweeting about this earlier today, and they're absolutely right. His insistence on starting Jackson Arnold as long as he did was just coaching malpractice. It was so obvious early in this season that Jackson Arnold is exactly who he was at Oklahoma. Exactly who he was at Oklahoma. And he kept going with him. And it really hurt that football team. And now you look at kind of what they've done recently, and they've run the ball in the 3 of their last 4 games. They've run for 210 yards or more. That's who Auburn was. I mean, the first couple games of the year, they were running really well, and then they just kind of went away from it because people were like, well, they can't throw, so load the box and make them throw. So it was it's almost like if you were to tell me, hey, man, I found out from a source that Hugh Freeze was a plant from Alabama. His goal was to go to Auburn and screw that program over. If you'd have told me you found that out, I'd be like, well, I think that's a little too conspiratorial for my taste, Vince. But then your response, but your answer would be, well, if he was going to do that, what would he do that's any different than what he did? And I'd be like, fair point. I got nothing, because it was just coaching malpractice, dude. It really was. And so I thought their take on that was absolutely spot on. So now what are we going to get from this Auburn team? That's the question. 1 week their defense looks great. The next week their defense looks terrible. Alabama is a team whose offense has been playing pretty poorly for a while. Auburn has a very good run defense. Alabama doesn't even care about trying to run a football.
No, and that's a really weird thing to watch when watching Alabama.
But on the other side of it, Vince, is Alabama wants to run the football, and Auburn doesn't have a very good pass defense. Or, Alabama wants to throw the football, and Auburn ranks 100th in the country in passing yards allowed. They rank 68th in passer rating this season on defense. They're 97th in yards allowed per attempt. Quarterbacks are completing 63.3% of the yards, which ranks 87th in all of college football. So what Auburn does well, Bama doesn't care about. What Auburn doesn't do well is exactly who Alabama is and who they want to be. That's going to make this very interesting. Now, on the other side of this is Auburn is a team that can get after the quarterback at times. Can they get after Ty Simpson? That's going to be the big question. I want to see the answer to that. That if they're going to keep Alabama's offense in check, a big part of it is going to be they pressure the quarterback well. If they can pressure Ty Simpson, they can force into some incompletions and mistakes. He has not been playing good football lately. And honestly, this Alabama offense, they're averaging 33.8 points per game. Right now, the Alabama is an offense, which ranks them 25th in college football. If you go to cfbstats.com, they have this options of how you can evaluate stats. If you type in versus FBS opponents only, Alabama drops down to from 25 to 29. They drop down to 31.6 points per game. Alabama is only scoring 31 points a game against FBS teams. If you go to what they've done against Power 5 teams, Alabama drops down to 36. Their number goes down to 27 points a game. They're scoring the same number of points per game against Power 4 teams as Clemson. No, I'm sorry. I'm wrong. They're scoring 0.1 fewer points against Power 4 teams than Clemson. Notre Dame is number 2 in the country at 42 points a game, and the only team ahead of them is North Texas, who they still count Washington State for some ungodly reason as a Power 4 team. So Notre Dame is number 1 amongst all Power 4 teams in points per game against Power 4 opponents. They're scoring 42 in 9 games against Power 4 opponents. Alabama scoring 27. You want to know why Alabama ranks below Notre Dame? That's it right there. They have a very average offense that can't run the ball. And then Alabama the committee's like, well, Alabama doesn't run the football. So what does Alabama do? Hey, let's go run the football on Eastern Illinois. And they ran this past week against Eastern Illinois, Vince. They ran for 269 yards, 5.5 yards per carry. Think about that compared to Notre Dame and what Notre Dame did to Syracuse, a Power 4 team.
Right.
And even with that 269-yard performance against Eastern Illinois, and even with their 212-yard performance against Louisiana Monroe, Alabama still ranks 107th in college football in rushing yards per game. Alabama still ranks 111th in the country in yards per carry. I have a hard time even fathoming that at this point in time. I really do. Bama doesn't even try to run the football.
It's not your older brother's Alabama team, man. Like that's for sure. I wouldn't even say your dad's Alabama. It's not your older brother's Alabama.
It's not even your Alabama.
Yeah,
forget
right.
your older brother. It's just 2 years ago.
It's wild to me. Like, it is absolutely wild to me. And I just don't know that, I mean, this is a deeper discussion for a different time, but like, that's not a recipe for success in the playoff.
Not
in my opinion.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, to make a run, I don't see that as a recipe for winning a bunch of games in the playoff. Yeah. And if you're Alabama, you're on the cut line right now. You're at that in that 10 spot, and obviously you have an opportunity to make it to the SEC championship and all of those kinds of things if they take care of business on Saturday against Auburn. But I just don't know that they're a scary team.
They're winning, you're in. I mean,
correct.
Alabama right now, to me, this is for their playoff destiny. If you win this game, you clinch a spot in the SEC title game.
Right.
Barring them getting blown out in the SEC title game, it's going to be hard for the committee to put another team in over them unless it's a team that wins their league like a BYU. Right? Like, which even then I still don't, if Alabama loses, I think that's going to be hard. You're basically playing your rival for a shot at the playoffs. If you're Auburn, this game means you have a shot to knock your rival out of the playoffs.
Completely out. Like, if they lose this game, it's over. It's over. You'll have people still arguing that they should be
now. Bama can still play for the SEC title if Ole Miss loses. So they're not completely out of the SEC title, but they would then have to win the SEC championship to be in the top 12 at that point in time.
It'd be as an automatic bid.
Yeah, exactly.
Very similar to the ACC.
That's going to happen. Exactly.
Right.
So it's a very rough situation.
This is a big one. And I would say that right now, the way Alabama's playing, they're not trending necessarily in the right direction, which is what makes this game that much more interesting, right? With the way Auburn is playing, the way Alabama is playing, the fact that they're rivals and all of those things, last game of the year, the implications that are on the table. That is why this is going to be very, very interesting, to be honest with you.
What's interesting, Vince, is Alabama's does not run the ball at all, but their run defense has been pretty good. They give up 227 to Georgia in game 4. They give up 230 to Florida State in game 1. Since then, Missouri's 163 is the most they've given up. They've gotten better each week. 163, 142, 111, 59, 74, and 14. Their run defense has gotten a lot better. They're going to need to be in peak form in this game. Now, part of the reason they weren't very good stopping the run early in the season is they didn't have Tim Keenan, who's in my opinion, their best defensive lineman, was banged up early in the year. He didn't play against Florida State. I think he played against Georgia, but he was not 100%. So that's going to be interesting. Auburn's going to have to find a way to run the football in this game, and because you got to be balanced. I'm not saying you got to go run for 250, but you've got to be $150 plus, to have a shot to win this game. Ashton Daniels sitting back, dropping back, beating you all day, throwing the football. That may work against Vanderbilt, whose defense stinks. That's not going to work against Alabama.
Right.
So they're going to have to find a way to run the football if they're going to win this game.
And it's at home. If you're an Auburn fan, so that definitely can lead to some interesting things as well. So, Brian, what is your prediction for this game? How do you see this one playing out?
Well, I'm going to let you go first.
Oh yeah, okay. All right. I do think that there's going to be some points scored. I as much as I'm saying the circumstances are bringing these teams closer together, I don't see it playing out that way. I have a hard time with everything that's on the line for Alabama. I mean, you said it, right? You said Alabama this is their playoff life on the line. They get into the SEC championship game if they win this game. Plain and simple. Nothing else has to happen. Win and you're in. So much on the line. I don't see how they go and they flub this up. I just don't. I think they are the better football team. I've got Alabama winning 35-14. And maybe that's a lot of points for Alabama. Maybe that's not enough for Auburn. I don't know. But I just don't think this game is going to be close down the stretch. That's where I'm at.
Alabama has only scored over 30 since they played. They scored 38 points on Wisconsin in week 3. Since then, they've only scored more than 30 points in a game once, and that was against Tennessee. That's really bad. They scored 30 against Vandy, 24 against Georgia, 27 against Ole Miss, 29 against South Carolina, and that was after South Carolina literally let them score their last touchdown. 21 against Oklahoma. So I don't think much of this offense from Alabama.
Fair.
I think they can certainly still win, but I don't think they're. 35. That'd be quite the output for them. I went chalk for the most part. Rest of the way, I don't consider a 2.5 point. I picked an underdog in Vanderbilt, but I've gone chalk the rest of the way. This is where I stop.
Oh. You're pulling it. You're pulling the upset.
I am. And it's not about anything. I mean, look, nothing would make me happy as a Notre Dame fan for Pitt to beat Miami.
Yeah.
I didn't pick them to beat Miami because I don't think they're going to beat Miami. You know what I mean? I think they can, but this is about the matchup. Look, I don't know that Alabama is going to be able to go on the road against a team like this and throw the ball all over the yard in the way they need to. Alabama has not been a great road team this year. I know that sounds crazy because they beat Georgia on the road. I didn't think Alabama played that great in that game. I thought Georgia kind of choked that game away with some red zone turnovers. I didn't think they played that great at Missouri. Won that game by 3 points. They had to have a huge comeback against South Carolina to win that game. Not as bad as the comeback that Texas A&M needed, but they needed a bit of a miracle finish to win that game. And that's and they got smacked on the road against Florida State. I think this Auburn team is hungry. I think this team is playing a lot looser since Hugh Freeze was fired. The quarterback situation is a little bit, how's that kind of going to go? But I think Auburn's front is going to be able to disrupt Ty Simpson. I think that they're going to be dual threading up. I know that Ashton Daniels is going to start, but I don't think it'll be a shocker if we see Deuce Knight in this game as well. I think the running ability of these two mobile quarterbacks is going to give Alabama some problems. They got, Ashton Daniels is a mobile quarterback. As we found out Notre Dame last year, remember what Ashton did to Notre Dame in the first quarter of the game last year before he realized the rest of his team sucked. And Notre Dame absolutely dominated that football game. So that's where I'm at. I mean, just matchup-wise, I think Alabama has not played good football. And I think that the quote-unquote big win over Eastern Illinois last week was a lot of fool's gold because Eastern Illinois is a 3-9 FCS team. And I think Auburn is, Auburn played an FCS team last week too, but Auburn played a 9-2 Mercer team who got a bye in the first round of the FCS playoffs. And you and I have talked about this. Teams that are on the top 10 of the FCS are better than some group of 5 teams and can give you better tests. And so for Auburn to beat them the way they did, they went down to the wire against Vanderbilt. The last 2 weeks, this Auburn football team has looked like they did at the beginning of the year. And I think that's why they pull off the upset.
I love that. I love that upset pick. I'm glad you didn't go chalk all the way around. I appreciate that. And there's a lot of, just as an aside to what you just said, there's a lot of talent that isn't necessarily playing at the P4 level. There's a ton of talent. I mean, the Chambliss kid who's playing at Ole Miss now was playing on the D2 national championship, national champion this time last year. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So there's talent all over the place. There's good teams that you've never heard of that are really good teams. So just want to throw that out there. But anyway, so that,
well,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, I predicted a lot of close games. It's not like, you predicted some blowouts. I didn't. I have Ohio State blowing out Michigan, but I have Miami, Pitt being close, Oregon, Washington being close. I have Vanderbilt, Tennessee being close, and I have Auburn, Alabama being close. I think all these games are going to be close games except for Ohio State, Michigan. And when they're close games, they can go back and forth.
Sure.
I mean, they can. It's you and I both have Pitt, Miami, very similar. You have it 21-20 Pitt. I have it 24-21 Miami. So basically, the difference between you and I is I have one field goal drive for Miami that you think will be a field goal drive. I have as a touchdown drive. That's literally the difference between the two of us.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's it.
100%.
So I do think there's going to be some great football, and there's been great football on. I mean, let me rephrase. I wouldn't say there's been great football on. There's been close, competitive football on so far. This Mississippi State Ole Miss game has not been good football, but it's close. Nope. It's 14-10. Let's see what Ole Miss can do here. First half against Nebraska, Iowa. Nebraska just scored, Iowa just scored a touchdown. They're about to go up 24-16 at half. Utah's beaten Kansas 10-7 at half. So far, Vince, there's been very good competitive football in these games being played so far. Northern Illinois is beating Kent State 21-17 at halftime. The only blowout so far is Ohio's beating Buffalo 21-7 at halftime. All these other games so far have been very competitive. And how bad is your defense to give up 24 points to Iowa in the first half of the game?
Seriously.
Like, I mean, I'm not even like that is bad. Like, and it's not like pick sixes. I mean, Iowa has a 51-yard touchdown drive, a 75-yard touchdown drive, a 75-yard touchdown drive. I mean, the only turnover drive they had was a field goal drive. Actually, it wasn't even a turnover drive. I think they had a special teams play or something. Let me see here. What was their field goal drive? Let's see here. How'd they get the ball? Yeah, 51-yard kick return is how they set up their first drive. So, I mean, their offense is moving the ball. Iowa's got 198 yards of total offense in the first half. Now, to Nebraska's credit, they have 228 yards in the first half, which is a lot against Iowa, who's, by the way, Iowa's defense has faded it a bit down the stretch. It has. I think they've just run out of gas. I think they've had to carry this team for so long. They have not played great football down the stretch. They didn't play great against USC in the second half. Weren't able to make that stop late against Oregon, and then today they're getting run on pretty good. They've got 186 rushing yards in the first half against Iowa. Nebraska does. Now, 70 of that was a one run by Emmett Johnson. So, but yeah, they're up now 24-16.
And Ole Miss is driving, so they got 17 seconds.
Now let's see. I don't know if they have enough time to get a touchdown drive here. They missed a field goal earlier.
Well, I mean, they're inside the 15-yard line. So
yeah, but 2nd and 9, 17 seconds left.
And they got one
timeout. You got a chance for 2 plays. Really, here is all you got. So hopefully, Mississippi State can hold them to a field goal here, which I don't have a lot of hope for because Mississippi State's defense has been terrible in this game.
Yeah, they're not good.
Like, I mean, I know that Ole Miss only has 14 points so far.
Well, look, they've missed some wide open deep shots. 100%. Chambliss has overthrown some of his guys that had steps on the defense. I mean, they were behind.
They had 300 yards of offense in the first half and only 14 points so far. I mean, yes.
They did not capitalize on some big plays that they had opportunity to capitalize on.
Correct. They are not. That's a push off. Like, why do they never call offensive pass interference?
Never. Only against Notre Dame.
Like, oh my God. Like, number one just literally shoves the Mississippi State defensive back. And
they call that a touchdown too. Wow.
They call it a touchdown. Yeah, that's absolutely offensive pass interference. But not surprised. Mississippi State's defense sucks right now. But that's a heck of a ball, though, by Chambliss. Heck of a ball. Did he get his foot in? Yeah, he got his right foot down. It's a touchdown. It's a great job by Stribling to get his foot down on that play.
Oh, yeah, it was. Because he looked like he was going to land on his back.
Yeah. Yep. Heck of a job there.
And that's big going into halftime, too. So that game may have just taken a turn the Mississippi State wasn't hoping for. So
yeah, I mean, and honestly, this is how the first half has played out. I mean, Mississippi State's defense
absolutely
abysmal in this game.
Yeah. Just not on the scoreboard.
Like Jeff Lebby's going to have to make some. He's going to have to make. I hate to say this, I don't like advocating for this, but I mean they've lost games this year because their defense is just abysmal. I mean, think about the Texas game. They were up 38-17 and choked that game away on defense. Gave up 433 yards to Arkansas in a loss. Gave up 567 to Georgia in a loss. Gave up 438. Including 326 rushing yards to Missouri. gave up 479 yards to Texas A&M. You gave up 452 yards and 6.7 yards per play to Florida. Like, their offense stinks. So unfortunately, he's gonna have to make some decisions. He's gonna have to make some decisions on defense. That's where.
All right. Well, everybody needs to enjoy their Friday football because there's a bunch of it out there. And if you're a high school fan and you're living in Indiana, it's the high school state championships today as well. So there's 3 games today, 3 games tomorrow. So check that out as well. And a lot going on over here in the next 24 hours. Well, more like 36 hours. So you definitely want to check that out. We are going to be back tomorrow at about 10 o'clock, and that's p.m. Eastern time.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to have a little bit of a pregame show, a little teaser pregame show, and then we're going to do a game watch. And so you definitely want to hang out with us into the wee hours of Saturday night into Sunday morning, and we will take you on a ride as Notre Dame goes on the road to Stanford, 10:30-ish kickoff, and we'll give you our insights. It'll just be like we're all hanging out, watching the game, having some fun, just fanning out, and obviously we'll have some analysis as well as we go. But definitely join us for a game watch. We haven't done one in a couple of years, and so back by popular demand is the best way to put it. And so it'll be me and Brian and Trev, and we are going to have some fun watching Notre Dame take on a tree, and it'll be a lot of fun. So definitely join us for that. We will set that show. You guys can jump in. We'll start around 10 o'clock for a little pregame action. So looking forward to that one, Brian, for sure. And then we'll have some postgame thoughts as well. Might be during the game as things are going. We'll go with the flow of the game. If things are no longer in doubt, we'll go ahead and kick that thing off a little bit earlier, and we'll talk about our thoughts about Notre Dame, where things are going in the game, all of the things. So definitely join us.
The cool thing, too, is that we'll talk about at the beginning of the show is we'll have a good idea of what's happened in college football. This will be the last big game to kick off.
True.
So we'll spend some time talking about what all the other games meant for Notre Dame.
Yes.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah, great point. Great point. So rest up. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Enjoy your tomorrow. A bunch of big games. Bunch of good football, we're hoping. Should be a lot of fun. So definitely come join us at around 10 o'clock tomorrow night. So make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, that notification bell. Share with your family and friends. Give us a 5-star review. Jump on the boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. Would really appreciate that as well. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Irish Breakdown podcast presented by FanDuel. For Brian, I'm Vince. We will talk to you tomorrow night when Notre Dame straps it up for the last game of the regular season. Have a good one, everybody.